The Battle of Maldon, fought on August 10th, 991, was one of the most famous confrontations between the Anglo-Saxons and Viking raiders during the late 10th century, and it has lived on not only as a historical event, but also as a powerful symbol of loyalty and heroism, thanks to the Old English poem that recounts it. The Vikings, who had been carrying out devastating raids along the English coast, arrived at the estuary near Maldon in Essex with a fleet said to number around 90 ships, carrying possibly 1,000 warriors. Their arrival was part of the larger wave of Scandinavian incursions that plagued England during this period, driven by both plunder and the desire for tribute known as danegeld. Earl Byrhtnoth, the elderly but respected Ealdorman of Essex, mustered a local force of household warriors, thanes, and peasant levies to defend the territory. He was known for his courage, his sense of duty, and his willingness to fight in defense of King Athelred the Unready's realm. When the Vikings landed on Northey Island, separated from the mainland by a tidal causeway, they sent envoys demanding tribute, hoping to extort wealth without risk. Byrhtnoth, however, refused outright, declaring that he would never buy off an enemy with gold, and that the land must be defended by force. At first, his position was strong. The causeway was narrow, and a small band of Anglo-Saxon warriors managed to hold off repeated Viking attempts to cross while the tide was high. The natural barrier gave the English defenders an excellent advantage, and the Vikings were unable to bring their superior numbers into play. But as the tide fell, the Vikings called across the water and challenged Byrhtnoth to allow them passage to the mainland so that the battle could be fought openly and fairly. In what has been interpreted as both a gesture of heroic courage and a fatal act of overconfidence, Byrhtnoth agreed and ordered his men to withdraw from the crossing, thus abandoning their strong defensive position. Once the Vikings crossed over, the battle was joined in earnest. The fighting was brutal and hand-to-hand, with spears, swords, and shields clashing as the two sides closed ranks. Byrhtnoth himself fought at the front lines, encouraging his men and striking down several foes with his spear. According to the poem, he displayed remarkable bravery, but during the struggle he was wounded by a spear and then surrounded and struck down, his death becoming the turning point of the battle. The fall of the commander caused confusion and demoralization among the Anglo-Saxons. Some men, particularly the less committed levies, fled the field in fear. Yet others, especially Byrhtnoth's household retainers and loyal thanes, chose to remain and fight to the death rather than abandon their lord, embodying the Germanic warrior code of loyalty and sacrifice. Figures such as Berthwold, one of his older warriors, are remembered in the poem for declaring that courage must grow stronger as their strength failed, an oath of defiance in the face of certain death. Ultimately, the English were overwhelmed, and the Vikings claimed victory. The consequences of Maldon were severe. The defeat exposed the vulnerability of England's defenses, and the morale of the Anglo-Saxon forces suffered. In the aftermath, King Athelred was forced to negotiate, and he agreed to pay the Vikings a large sum of danegeld to prevent further attacks, inaugurating a period in which such payments became increasingly common and burdensome. Though strategically disastrous, the battle's legacy endured in cultural memory. The poem, The Battle of Maldon, though surviving only in a fragment, immortalized Byrhtnoth and his men as exemplars of courage and fidelity, while also hinting at the tragic flaws of pride and misplaced honor that contributed to their downfall. The story of Maldon thus became more than a record of a raid. It stood as a reflection of the values, struggles, and vulnerabilities of Anglo-Saxon England on the eve of intensifying Viking pressures that would eventually culminate in conquest.